Welcome to Week 5's discussion board video on scholarly survey. When discussing women during the Reformation, it's only natural to consider what Martin Luther had to say. So the first source I would like us to look at is Luther on Women. However, I'd like to start in the preface, which mentions that although there are numerous studies on Luther, few of them look at his works related to women, marriage, the family, and sexuality during the Reformation period. Even though Luther was a predominant figure whose life and actions very much impacted marital status at the time, Luther spoke about marriage biblically with a reflection on the book of Genesis, viewing the woman's position as that underneath the man. Although upon his death he left his estate and his financial means to his wife, Caterina von Bora, even though women were not supposed to have funds independent of a male supervisor during their time. And since we began this week's scholarly survey with a look at Luther's views on women and marriage, it's only natural to move on to look at Calvin's treatment of women. The article, The Courting of Ladies in High Places, first considers Calvin's artful and skilled writing techniques, as more than 4,000 of his letters remain to this day. While the kings and queens of France were honored and oath-bound to remain loyal to the Catholic Church, the French nobility, particularly the noble women, were not out of the sphere of Calvin's influence. From 1542 until his death in 1564, Calvin corresponded with more than 18 women, mainly French noble women, reaching as deep into the royal family as Francis I's sister, Marguerite de Navarre, who would provide a solid Protestant female presence in France and Navarre, even though France was honor-bound and loyal to the Catholic Church. Although, as this article states, even sisters and daughters of kings were not immune from the royal wrath and the official persecutions that came with being openly Protestant in their day. Despite the issues of royal and clerical opposition, Protestant influences grew in France. And since we looked at Luther and Calvin, the third source I wanted to look at for this week is from another reformer, John Knox. John Knox's ministry was impacted by women in power. He was stopped first by Mary I, then by Marie de Guise, and further by Mary Queen of Scots. He unleashed his fury in the first blast of the trumpet against monstrous regiments and unnatural governments of women, a work that would call forth rebellion against female monarchs, particularly Mary I. Even after Mary's death, when Elizabeth I became Queen of England and a Protestant female monarch was on the throne, even with Elizabeth's open Protestant faith, Knox could not bring himself to support a female monarch in power. Things became even worse after the death of Marie de Guise, when Mary, Queen of Scotland, assumed her throne, as even though she accepted the faith of her nation, she was still a Catholic queen. Despite his issues and concerns with women in positions of power, when it came to his ministry, Knox was open to teaching to women, preaching to women. He even enjoyed being around women and enjoyed their company. So many of these men, despite their beliefs about women in power or women in positions of power, they still preached to women, taught to women, sought education for women. So I wanted to thank you for joining me for this week's portion of our research, and I hope you have a blessed and wonderful week.